USA National Miss Ohio. And on my channel today, we have our Sarah Pennington. Hi, Sarah. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Mindy. I'm Sarah Pennington. I am the reigning USA National Miss Independent State 2022.
Awesome. And this will be Sarah's third year at Nationals?
Yes.
And my third year too. So we've been on the UNM 3-year train together since the beginning. So I'm super excited to go back again with her. All right, guys. So as you know, this Mindy's Mindset is about honest conversations with queens. My platform is MIR, Mental Illness is Real. And I just think it's really important to talk about our mental illness and bring awareness about it. So today I have Sarah. And Sarah, do you want to tell me what all mental illnesses you suffer from?
So my list in a nutshell is I have depression and generalized anxiety, as well as BFRB, which is body-focused repetitive behavior. And specifically, my main BFRB is trichotillomania.
Wow. All right. Are you able to explain that trichotillomania more?
Sure. So trichotillomania is a really big word, which essentially means hair pulling disorder. It is very similar to nail biting and skin picking, which is why they're all categorized under that BFRB, body focused repetitive behavior category. And even larger up the scale, it is subcategorized as a OCD-like behavior, I believe.
Huh, very interesting. Do you, when did your mental illness journey begin?
I was first diagnosed with trichotillomania when I was 11 years old. That was the first mental health condition that was labeled, but as I began getting treatment for that, it became very clear to the mental health people that I also had anxiety and then eventually depression.
Wow. So you were 11, you said, being a school age child, being 11, going through puberty and having friends, what was it around them? Were you like bullied? Were people supportive? What was that environment like for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting because one of the two people who really noticed my condition first was actually my fifth grade teacher. And she brought it to my mom's attention and said, "Hey, I've noticed that Sarah has been messing with her eyebrows and pulling them out. And I just wanted to kind of bring this to your attention." And I think my mom noticed it as well. And together they kind of put their heads together and figured out that this was something that really needed to be addressed. But at the time, I really didn't consider it that big of a deal. I think it was easier for me to just say, "Oh, this isn't a big deal and it's not something I want to worry about," rather than trying to process at such a young age what mental health really was.
For sure.
But with something that is very apparent, and most mental illnesses are easier to hide, but when it's something that's very physical, like hair loss, people inevitably notice. And so I came up with some, what I thought were some crafty lies when people would ask about it. And I vividly remember one time in 7th grade, a friend of mine said to me, "Your eyebrows are like really thin, what's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm blonde. That's why you can't see them." And I didn't really tell people, but because of the fact that I was very secluded and hiding these conditions, it manifested in a way that I wasn't very social. And so that's, I think, the thing that people bullied me for more so than having a specific mental illness, is because the mental illness caused me to be so recluse and antisocial.
Wow. Very touching. I'm sorry you went through that, but where you are today has brought you a very strong background and a strong story. So you mentioned that your fifth grade teacher talked to your mom about it. Was your mom more of in shock? Was she accepting? Or what was it like for her when she was pretty much told, "I'm sure your daughter has a mental illness"?
My understanding was she was shocked, and then she went on a deep Google dive. I have to say I'm pretty lucky in that she did do a Google dive, because a lot of people who have my condition don't realize that there are more than one person in the world who has this condition. It's very under talked about, to the point where I've had to spell it for doctors. Like, they just don't even realize this is a real condition. And so the fact that she was able to say, oh, this is a mental health condition, it has a label, it has a name, there are other people who have it, in itself, that knowledge was powerful for me. It didn't make it any easier for her to hear that her child was suffering and she couldn't help.
Mhm.
But I think that changed the way my journey played out in the end.
Oh, for sure. All right. So you mentioned as well that you like to nap. Me too. And you like to cuddle with your dog. How often are you doing these? Like, how often do you have hard days? How often do you find yourself doing your things to help you on your hard days?
I think, with college, it fluctuates a lot. Um, but, naps are something that I've come to have as an integral part of my routine. So I would say daily naps are not uncommon. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a hard day. It just means I'm taking the time to do self-care, and that this is something that I realize really helps me. So I don't put myself through more stress trying to fight through a normal day without using the coping mechanisms. I just say, I'm going to use my coping mechanisms, and that makes it even better of a day, even if it was already good.
Yeah, I love that you say that you a nap's incorporated in you for daily. So it's more of just a prevention method so you don't reach that depression or anxiety state. That's really important. I'd like to keep that on for myself. I'll keep that in mind. All right. So you mentioned that mental illness may run in your family. Were you the first person diagnosed with a mental illness that you know of then?
I didn't learn that my parents had any diagnoses until I was diagnosed, but I do believe that my mom had been taking medication for anxiety well before, it was on the radar for me. And I think I'm definitely the person who's ever had the most treatment with my mental health conditions,
Yes.
but I'm certainly not the first person to have a mental health condition. And based on what I know about my parents, I'm also not the first to be diagnosed, which in and of itself is fantastic. But I wish they were more willing to go to therapy or to go get the help. But I think overall, as a generation, our age is the first people who are really saying, you know what, therapy is just another doctor's appointment. And I think that plays into what we're seeing with the generational mental health conditions and how people are handling that.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Personally, I take medication for my anxiety and depression. I'm also in therapy. I believe a combination of both of them work really well for me. Again, maybe medication's not for everyone, maybe therapy's not for everybody, but I do agree we are the generation to step up the mental illness game and let others know, hey, this is a thing, like it's okay. You had mentioned too that you do therapy, if I'm correct. Do you take
Yes.
medications? How do you think that feels for you? How's your not recovery, but your treatment plan like?
Yeah, so I do take medication, and I've been taking medication since like eighth grade. So it's been eighth grade was like 13, like 10 years. And this was actually the idea of my psychiatrist. I started seeing him, and he was really focused on treating my trichotillomania.
Mhm.
So he kind of did his own deep dive into the research books, and anything that had ever been tested for trichotillomania, he tried basically on me. And because it's not a very well known condition, that list is not nearly as long as many other conditions. But in the end, we ended up with two different medications that I take very low doses of, but we've found that they help in one way or another. And we've just stuck with that. And at this point, I don't really want to change up my medication regimen because it has been so successful for the past few years. And for me, it's just another thing that I do because why not take something that'll help me?
Oh, for sure. Like people have high blood pressure, they're taking medication for their high blood pressure. Why not take that depressive pill or the anxiety pill just to help with those neurotransmitters in there?
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, I believe we are coming to the end of our chat. So, my last question I have for you is for those who are suffering with mental illness, what is something you want to share with them?
I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that you're suffering, but also acknowledge the fact that it's not something that's your fault. I think, especially with conditions that I have, that's something that I've had to learn to accept and understand, because when you're the one who's physically pulling out your hair or picking your skin or biting your nails, it can be easy to go into this ideology of, oh, I'm doing this to me, it's my fault. And that's not the case. There's probably some chemical imbalance that we haven't figured out yet that is causing you to do these behaviors. And I think that once you accept that, okay, this isn't my fault, this is something I live with, but I am not the cause of it, then you can start seeking that treatment. But you're never going to get to a point where you're treated before you get to the point where you accept that you're suffering. And as someone who also lived with daily suicidal thoughts, I thought that there was a point in my life where, this is my life. I'm going to be stuck thinking about this every single day. And finally, I got the right treatment. I got to talk to the right people. I got the right medications, all of that stuff. And that's not the case anymore. And what you may be believing right now isn't necessarily what you're going to be believing in 5 to 10 years. And there is hope for a more optimistic and a more helpful output.
Oh, Sarah, that is so beautiful. I am tearing up right now. Alrighty, well, it was amazing having you on here with me. Is there any last thoughts you want to share?
I think it's important to let people know that you are never alone. There is help available. There's 24/7 help available, actually. And if you call 1-800-273-8255, you will reach the suicide hotline, and they'll be there to talk to you. And it's completely confidential. And it is just free help to get you through a really tough day.
Awesome. I love that. For all our followers on there, where can they follow you at for your journey to the crown?
I am on Instagram at UNM Independence State, or you can follow me at Sarah_M_PENN.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarah. You are beautiful inside out, and I am glad you are still here with us today to share your story.
Thank you so much, Mindy.